the country's dying, has been dying from a lack of accountability. You can't send people to Iraq war based on lies after you had, uh, the lies that got us into the Vietnam War and all the
You have to give
backlashes
people enough
there.
time to forget. That's the problem. They're running these things back to back. Also,
Yeah.
losing doesn't help. Like if you can run a war on propaganda and then the outcome is flowery and golden, you can just paper over the deception and people will remember it the way you told the story. The problem is you keep fucking it up. You can't do all the things wrong. And that's really the crux of the issue because the lies are nonstop. It's not like Vietnam or even Iraq or any of these, well, war in Vietnam. And I don't know, what do we even call Iraq? Was that ever a war on the books? Did Congress ever actually vote to go to war in Iraq, or was it just a series of
No,
operations?
yeah, he got the war powers passed, and like the president took it over, and
Right.
every president since, as every executive does, when there's power given to the executive, they don't give that shit
They don't
back.
give it back. And the continuation of blundering the outcome, right? No thought to the aftermath. So there is no great success you can point to that justifies whatever blood and treasure was lost in the pursuit of this end. But then on top of that, we're no longer completely veiled with American exceptionalist nonsense. So we're looking into things a lot deeper with a lot more skepticism, and we find the empty pallets that used to be stacked with cash. We find the money trail that leads back to these private corporations, that these mercenaries essentially.
Blackwater and yeah,
Well,
XE, I think they're called.
exactly. You know, we find the breadcrumbs are big enough for us to find, and these things are not leading anywhere good. And then you see on the heels of that, these very same people having the audacity to suggest that they don't have money to spend domestically to actually help the citizenry survive or to help the middle class sustain or to help people out of poverty, at least into modern poverty. You can't do all these things, and to me, that is an indication that we're not even trying hard enough anymore. Like the people who are perpetrating these wars and spreading these lies and coming up with these nonsense propaganda campaigns for war don't even care if you believe it. They don't even care enough. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, they don't even lie. Like, tell me my hair is great. Like, lie to me well, something, you know?
yeah, I
Uh,
long for the days of Dick Cheney now. Like I wish that they would at least put the effort forward that they put forward for these weapons of mass destruction. That would seem like a great deal of effort at this stage. Think about what they put. Think about what they put into that. Like you remember, you were anti-American if you even thought about speaking against the war in Iraq. They
oh
put
yeah.
most trusted military leader of our era. They ruined his credibility for the sake of this war, but they had to do it. At least they put him out there and sacrificed him on the petard. I mean, General Colin Powell was the one guy in the administration that I trusted, and they fucking hung him out to dry. But they felt like they had to do it. This
Yeah.
administration, and it's not. I'm talking Bush forward, they're not even fucking selling you on it anymore. It's
No.
just like give you a thin enough narrative for you to just believe it if you want to start talking that shit and sound crazy to your neighbors. But if not, it's almost like what are you gonna do about it?
No, I think that's the theme of this term, the the Trump regime 2.0 is what are you going to do about it? We're gonna send people to El Salvador. What are you going to do about it? By the time you get there, that guy's going to be so jacked up or dead, and everybody knows Kilmar Abreu, Garcia, but there's so many other people that have gone and the amount of like US citizens that are getting scooped up and it's so big. Like we already had a mass incarceration problem that we couldn't deal with. Like things were grinding to a halt. Like when I went on that tour in the box, which I'm sure on these episodes I'm always going to refer to this because it blew my mind. The stories. So we would do the play, right? And then we would have there was all these different prison rights groups in the different states, and we would have like a circle afterwards, rather than like most plays. They happen, and if they really rile you up, we're like, thanks, and we just send you out into the night. this was like we do like a healing circle where people would share their stories, and we'd kind of do a bunch of woo stuff and like somatic exercises and kind of release the energy. But the stories from the activists and the people that we call returned citizens, people that were in there and came out, I've heard now way too many stories of women that were pregnant, that were forced to give birth in solitary confinement and then ripped from their kids. But this one activist in Texas, she was just there. She wasn't trying to get people out. She was just trying to get air conditioning put into the prisons in Texas. Like we've had a problem, like a five-alarm fire for how we treat our own citizens for a long time, and where we allocate our funds. It's like a budget is a list of your ethics, really, and your
Right.
principles. And if your
We've also had
military is like this and your social safety net is like this, like what are you fucking doing?
we also have throwaway people in
Hmm.
this country for a very long time. So the first thing that you're going to trigger when you say we need air conditioning in the prisons is they're in fucking prison. They shouldn't have air conditioning. Why
Right.
should they have human conditions? This should be a punishment. Oh, good. No air conditioning? Good. That's what they get. That's what they deserve. And if the justice system were reliable and eking out justice
Right.
justly, I might agree. I might say if I had that kind of confidence that everybody in prison, you know what? To be fair, I'll be honest with you. If I had the confidence that 90% of the people in prison deserved the term that they were getting and were guilty of the crimes of which they were convicted and sentenced appropriately to their fellow man and woman, I would be like, yeah,
And,
we got to work on that 10%. We got to get, but we're not changing the whole prison system to accommodate the possibly innocent or less guilty of less offenses than they're in for. We got to work on getting that 10% to 100. And that's not just. That's not a just way to think. But I would be
no,
sucked into this theory, thinking that, well, this is how prison should be because everybody in there is guilty of what they've been charged with, and it is a punishment. And why should there be creature comforts?
but
But
also add in that doing all the things you said, you have to add this other thing that doing this makes recidivism go down, and that actually like works as a deterrent, which it like doesn't. As the sentences have gone up, gotten longer. There was an exhibit in Eastern State Penitentiary. I think Amnesty International maybe put it together, but it was the wildest shit I've ever seen. It was like the beginning of mass incarceration to now, or incarceration, which started at that prison to now, and it showed like incarceration rates versus crime in the US, and one didn't affect the other. No matter how many people you put in prison and how long you put them in prison, crime kind of dipped, went up, went down. It was more about material conditions and improving people's lives and economic possibilities and education. That brings crime down, not like punishing people. If like I'm starving to death and I'm desperate and I'm going to do crime, knowing what the consequences are, that's probably already like way back here. I'm now just like hand to mouth. And I'm known, I don't know,
the question then becomes, where does the line between rehabilitation and punishment lie?
and
Because
restitution. Yeah.
I agree with punishment, but I also understand the logic of rehabilitation.
Hmm.
And then, as opposed to being institutionalized, what about being reconstituted into society
Yeah,
with a
man.
program that would help you limit recidivism because there are more options available? And you will always then be met with the lowest common denominator, the worst possible outcome, which is you're dealing with a just career criminal who's
Right.
taking advantage of systems and programs like that, or just a vile, evil human being who will
Sure.
take a victim at any turn. And if you put a predator in a position of any kind of lack of surveillance or opportunity, you're going to get more victims. That's not available, though. That is the truth of the human condition. So, do we legislate for that? Do we legislate for the worst possible outcome? Or do we legislate for the best potential outcome and understand that there will be people who take advantage of the system and those who benefit who don't deserve an opportunity because they are the type of people I described. However, it's worth it to take that risk for the lion's share of those who may not end up back in prison if we had these programs in place. I don't actually know the answer. I don't know what the right answer is. And
Yeah.
depending on the crime, I come down to different places to the question.
Yeah, I mean, two of the guys on the tour were returned citizens. Like the woman that wrote it, she was one of the three like backpackers that crossed over into Iran and
Mm.
was they were kidnapped. It was kind of a famous story. Uh,
Yeah.
and Sarah Short is her name, and she ended up coming back. She was a journalist actually, and was part of a project that was about solitary in the country. Became a graphic novel, and then she made a play out of it. And then we toured the play after like 3 years of running the play. And I met a lot of returned citizens along the way, and almost to a person, they were working in the community, trying to help people not go down their road, trying to help people, like you said, like reintegrate back into society, because that's like the hardest road there is. Over and over again, I saw those folks. So I don't, it changed the way I look at people and especially the amount of people that I met that were like impacted by the system. Um, I think we need to give those programs more money uh, to expand people's minds, to educate them on the inside. Uh, I don't know if that's a fantastic question. Do you legislate for the worst or for the best? And it's also hard, like, you lose your vote when you become a felon, but is that a deterrent when voting in this system, which is not beneficial to all of us and has kind of created the conditions by which you ended up in the life of crime? Like, oh no, I don't get to participate in that system.
What is the logic behind losing your vote as a felon? Is that punitive? Is it that we can no longer trust your uh, determining factor as to what kind of country you want to live in? Can you no longer decipher? What is the logic
I,
between felony convictions after you've served your term? I'm not expecting people to vote from prison necessarily, but I would bet you, and I don't know, that there's probably some fucking arcane situation back on the books back in the day that made this somehow make sense at a time gone by that isn't applicable anymore. Do you know what the reasoning is behind that?
have you seen the 13th by Ava DuVernay?
Sure.
I think it goes back to slavery, and it's a way of, because after the Civil War, um, Black people integrated into the government at a rapid rate. And you ultimately saw something like the Wilmington Uprising, where there was, Black folks all through the legislature, and a group of white people rose up and they went and they killed everybody in the state house, essentially, or ran them off so that they could, do a white power takeover. And I think that loophole of slavery is illegal unless you've been criminalized. Exists to kind of take people out of society and to disenfranchise people. When you look at the numbers of Black and brown people being exponentially, affected by incarceration in the country and criminalized, that school, the prison pipeline is a real thing. I think that's why it's there. Why
I
else,
understand.
what else is the benefit of taking away somebody's say in society? How are they ever going to have a buy-in to this world when you make them a person without a country,
Yeah,
essentially?
I mean, I get the overarching, let's keep slaves enslaved in a different system so we can
Mhm.
justify their enslavement and create this recidivism that we need to continue to grow the prison population. It's just that one very specific element
Yeah.
of the punishment for being a felon who's served his time and is clearly free. Like, I don't see a direct connection between not being able to vote and sending you back to prison. So what is it that they are trying to affect, or when that became law, what was the
Yeah.
reason to affect it? Anyway, this is something.
That's a good question. I mean, I think it leaves you with no buy-in in the country, and maybe that's part of the reforms that need to happen. Is like there's a path back to kind of full citizenship for you if you do X, Y, and Z. It's not just picking up trash on the side of the freeway, but getting involved in your community and mentoring or helping people out. I don't
Yeah.
know
So
because
this question is going to constantly plague us because there is the opportunity in the best case scenario for someone to change their life, get off the ground floor of poverty after coming out of prison, find a way forward where you can build a life even as a ex-felon. And really, in this country, you're never an ex-felon. You're always a felon once you're a felon, whether you've served your time or not.
yeah.
However, you'll find the nightmare stories, right? Like, should we? insist that by law you have to let your employer know that you have been a felon if you've served your time, if you're not on probation anymore, you're not, you know what I mean? You've done your time, you committed the crime, you did the thing, and now do
Should
you have to
be.
tell people that you've done this crime and done this time? It's going to be a lot harder for you to build a life, build a career, get a job, even an entry level one, if you have to put that in front of your face and name. However, if I'm an employer, do I not deserve the right to know that? Because
Yeah.
if you don't tell me that and this person commits the same crime that they're in prison for, and I didn't get a chance to consider whether or not this is the type of history that I want in my business, the nightmare scenario writes itself.
It's tough. Like, yeah, there are cases where you're like, this person should absolutely be in prison and away from society. But like you said, do you legislate for the outliers, or do you, and who gets to decide,
Do you legislate for the rappers? I mean, what if this person definitely deserves to be in prison and should be for a very long time, but they have Grammys and can really put together an awesome team to create production for an album? I mean, then what do you do? How do
Yeah.
you solve that Rubicon?
Or if they have like government contracts for billions of dollars, like Peter Thiel and Palantir, a person very close to him died under very mysterious circumstances, and it wasn't as big of a scandal as P. Diddy. Well, it wasn't beating up anybody on video, but you know, um, there are two tiers for everybody. Let's let's get into the let's get into the big verdict. Can you tie this to
Little
Jack Johnson with what they got him with, right? They kind of got him on the Mann Act.
First thing I thought about too. I was like, that's not a good look. That's that fucking law that's like you can they say you can indict a ham sandwich. You can probably get any fucking heterosexual man on the Mann Act at some point if you want to, because you know what I mean. The bar is not high, and the law is written for it to be exactly what it is, a fucking golden or silver bullet, if you will.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you
Like if
know,
that's all you can get him on, you probably don't have him on much.
well, here's the thing. They have him on video being violent with a woman. Like, why isn't that enough?
Yeah, well, I mean, the good question is that enough for what? Let's like, okay, what are we convicting him of then? And what would the penalty be for that? It's probably not what we would expect it to be, right? It's domestic violence. It's like, we don't know how it started. He claims this, she claims that, whatever the video shows. It's definitely brutal.
Yeah.
But another one of those charges that, with the kind of lawyer team that he has and connections, he might even get off that. And if it were, it'd probably be like some probation time served, take some courses, take some, counseling, and maybe you guys can make a happy home down the line.
Nobody gets to know about the Punisher.
Nobody gets to know about the Punisher. Huh. uh, I'm seeing a lot of troubling reaction from the black community on this.
Hmm.
And it is not an OJ scenario, which is a whole nother conversation. But the time of that and the defense that was put forward for OJ, I understand the climate, and it is an entirely different conversation to Diddy.
And the
So
gloves didn't fit. So.
even that, brilliant. However, and there's a murder involved. So, again,
Yeah.
the stakes were even higher, as brutal as this uh, relationship was with Cassidy. That is not murder.
Right.
However, the willingness for Black people to celebrate criminals not being punished for their crimes, even if those crimes are against Black people. And I say even as not because crimes against white people are lesser, but I could understand potentially how it could be lesser in the minds of people who see white people as their oppressor and as the proprietor of so much violence in their lives that they are hardened against violence towards another community. I understand how that can become something that sits in the back of your mind. And when it comes to Black people hurting Black people and are not really any way innocent. Like we can talk about the legal standard and whether or not this
Yeah.
crime would met the standard burden of proof in the court of law and all this shit.
Right.
But okay, not that that isn't important. And yes, it's important in the court of law, but in the court of public opinion, those of us who are at home, those of us who see what it is, seen the video, know what we're hearing, it's okay. Like all of a sudden, everybody's a fucking legal beagle. All of a sudden, the only thing that matters is whether or not you can prove in court. That is not where the court of public opinion normally rests. It is whether or not this is fucking right or wrong. If this is something you accept in a person or not. Is this something that should be punished, regardless to necessarily the burden of truth if we know what we know? You understand?
Yeah.
I fucking showering each other with baby oil out in front of the fucking courthouse. Like, people jumping on like, oh, they're so thrilled that this man is not going to get a hefty sentence and want him acquitted on all counts, really. It's a bit disgusting. It's a bit disgusting because
Yeah.
this is not a racial thing. Taking down all our successful, but I mean, come on, it happens, and that's a thing. But this is not that thing. This is not that thing.
That's interesting.
You
Yeah.
know,
I mean,
and you'll get criticized. Like it's hard to even have this perspective what I'm giving you because the coons, the sellouts, the fucking clowns, and all that is going to be in the comments from those who feel like you have to be aligned with any black person in peril in the justice system. Period. I just expressed how I don't trust the justice system at all.
at all.
However, I do trust my eyes and ears. I do trust my own discernment. I do know when there's a preponderance of evidence enough for me to be like, okay, this shit is wrong. We've got enough testimony here by enough people to let me know that what this man was doing is dead ass wrong. And I'm not even saying, oh, I need him gone away for the rest of his life or anything. What I'm saying is I'm repulsed by the celebration
Yeah.
of
This was not,
demand for some acquittal on the grounds of nothing more than he's black and what no black person should ever go to jail for anything.
I mean, there's a lack of accountability. If your side's winning, then it's all good. And never mind that baby oil is absolutely the wrong lube to use. Uh, and he's really, spread some misinformation. Sorry.
You did it on purpose. You saw me take the drink. You did the thing. You almost got me. Well played.
Thank you. That aside, um, yeah, no, you're absolutely right. There's no reason to celebrate it. And not just he attacked another black person, attacked a black woman, who are like the backbone of the electorate in many ways and kind of a moral center for this country. And for him to treat her that way, it was all about power. And that's the thing that the law, I think, maybe he should have run for president and he would have been immune from all this. But to me, I mean, like Jay-Z or not Jay-Z, I'm sorry. What's his face that just went in for years being a predator. It's like two back-to-back musicians. This is how uncool I am. I can't remember the other one. R. Kelly. Thank you. Yeah.
Was it?
R. Kelly. You know,
Oh,
yeah, I mean, these guys are kind of serial abusers using their power. That's who they are. And I think if anything, what people should see in this country, particularly in our era, is that once you get to a certain level, you guys are all just green. You guys are all just elite dudes that are rich as fuck and powerful and able to do what you want. Like what he was doing on video was to me the same as Harvey Weinstein attacking people because of his position of power and beating off in front of people and showing up naked at the door or whatever with his robe open. You've reached a certain level of money and influence and power in your industry.
it's really, and a network of people to protect your behavior. None of
Absolutely.
these guys could get away with this on their own
They're like mob
without
bosses.
litany of people covering them, organizing things for them, making sure that they continued to not only get away with it, but get away with it the way they want to do it. I mean, there are no guardrails, which is why
None.
you just keep pushing the boundary.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if anything, there should be more people indicted, more people having to face these charges, more people having to explain their role in this behavior, which white or black, we never get the full fucking spectrum of how many co-conspirators these people have.
It takes a village, you know.
Yeah.
But it takes a network of people willing to bend over for power to you know alter reality like this around a person. So there's no accountability. We saw this back with he was with J Lo and the whole gun charges. Like, why are what is happening? And no accountability. You kind of get a slap on the wrist and you move forward and you keep doing this because no one's stopping you. I want
There's
Justin Bieber to
let's
testify.
be
That's
had about where money and power cross-sect with racial discrimination because this kind of flies in the face of that. Granted, it's a black woman. Now the question has to be asked: if she were a white woman, are we looking at the same verdict? Are we seeing the same kind of reaction from the public? I doubt it, right? Because we got Lee. Is it? It's not Lee Majors. That was that was
leave the $6 million
It's
man
Lee
out of
Majors,
this.
but apologies to the Lee Major family. That's a $6 million man. He is not
Yeah.
in trouble. But however, Majors,
Jonathan Majors.
Jonathan
That's funny.
Majors,
I've been sitting here going, what King the Conqueror? Yeah.
I mean,
That racial dynamic was,
yeah,
yeah.
far less of a crime. And look what happens there. Also, far less money, far less influence, far less power, far less connected.
And
And
he was in trouble with the America's most precious resource, white women.
right. So um I think we got to call our own community on the carpet when it comes to these things. Like we got to be honest, we got to be real about it. Everybody's not innocent. Your baby did do something to somebody. There isn't a blanketed black disadvantage in the justice system necessarily. It does have a lot to do now with position and privilege. And you get a story like R. Kelly, who, I mean, yes, he's in prison now, maybe there forever. However, it took way too long. It took way too long for that to happen. So where does the prejudice lie? Is it because the victims are black women that justice takes so long? And then when it comes, the black community is like, oh, you're railroading one of our heroes, one of our stars, one of our success stories. You don't even have the support from the black community to defend black women when it's
Yeah.
Bill Cosby. I mean, yes, that takes way too long. And yes, he's a pillar of society. He had civil rights movement, funded so many things, had a show that changed the way black families were viewed. I mean, all the stuff. And it's hard to swallow that this may have been a part of the man that did all of these things. But if it is, do all of those other things excuse this? If that had been something we knew while he was doing all of those things and didn't, would we not pursue it? Like if it's like the people who come to the defense of predators because of the music they've made or the impact that they've had or the lofty position of adornment or authority that they're in, if you knew, if you were the one keeping the secret, if you were the one who saw the thing, if you had the evidence because of who they are, would you tuck it? Would you hide it? Would you keep it? Would you shield them? Would you protect them? Is that the
Yeah.
rationale of the syndicate of co-conspirators who do exactly that? Ask yourself these questions when you're
I saw it in the,
free, fill in the blank.
yeah, well, with Floyd Mayweather, when he was accused of and convicted of domestic violence against his baby mama, that was the last fight that I covered for him. Like I wasn't, I was covering it for Max Boxing, but how it was is like you kind of paying your own expenses to get to Vegas, and you get you're getting your paycheck from doing that. But I was like, once they let him out to do the pay-per-view, and then he could do his time. Like they moved things for him. I did my final story, which was um, I kind of dropped some bombs about PEDs and his connection to a TRT dealer that was a longtime booster of his, Don Hale and his brother Dr. Dan Hale, who ran like these kooky like TRT clinics that soon after actually got shut down for giving people illegal prescriptions to testosterone and HGH. And Floyd was like, "Yeah, I fly him to my fights. He sits in the front row or whatever." But I was like, "I want to take my shot here." Um, didn't write about really the DV, but it was like, I'm out. And, because at a certain point you become publicity for these people by helping them out. And I think everybody has to draw that line for themselves and say, you can't always separate the art from the artist. Like it's hard for me to, I'm an Elvis fan. He met his wife at 14. She was 14. He was not. He was a worldly man. He groomed her for years and then
Not too
married her.
far. Not too far. Move on.
What's that? It's too
You got
far.
too far. You got too far. It's a different time. He didn't know.
Different time. No,
The
he knew.
parents were on board. She got a great ride. Like, you know what I mean?
Leave Elvis alone.
Not just paint everything with the same broad brush. You
I
understand?
don't know, man. Time is
Uh,
time. 14 is 14. But
that's what I'm,
he's still on my, I got a black velvet Elvis, from the 68 comeback special, in a place of honor in my office here. So
you know what I mean?
it's
Like,
still,
you know what you did? You just kept naming people until you got to somebody. You just was like, I'm gonna find the hypocrite in this guy. I'm just gonna keep pushing fucking buttons.
I
And
had no
something's
idea.
gonna fucking trigger him. And
You're an
here we
Elvis
are.
guy?
Massive Elvis guy.
I had no idea. But that's why we like each other. I'm an Elvis guy as well. But
Uh,
but it's rough. It's rough. I haven't, yeah, yeah.
yeah, I mean, do you see that movie Priscilla?
I started it. Uh,
Yes, not great.
yeah.
But
I was kind of like, I don't want, I kind of already know this. I don't want to see it.
not great.
It's
Not
not
great.
great.
But there's some upside, is all I'm saying. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And to her credit, and this is one of those things that's just like I had this conversation in a stage show uh, when Bill Belichick's girlfriend was headline news, and they talk about obviously the power dynamic and the age disparity, and you're taking advantage even if she's of age, it's too much, and I'm just like these girls are smarter than these guys. Like they're, you know what I mean? Like if Elvis, the crazy thing is if Elvis had listened to Priscilla, he may not still be alive today, but he'd been a lot longer life than he had. Like
Yeah.
she at her young, impressionable,
There was
too young,
a
taking
growing up
advantage of
period.
age. She saw the fucking writing on the wall. She saw it coming. She saw what the problem was, and tried to save the king.
Yeah.
Like guys are so fucking dumb. They're so dumb.
Well, he
And
died for our rock and roll sins. He did it all first. The entourage, too many drugs. Pour one out for the king. Yeah.
yeah,
But you're absolutely right. If he'd have listened, you know, like
yeah.
like a good husband. But
Uh,
instead, instead, give me another.
so you found the problem. Like, would I? And it was a different time. It was a different time. Would
Well,
I have hid that information? If I could convict Elvis Presley, I'm not sure. What I would do is redistribute the royalties for those songs. I'll give you that. I
yeah,
would do that. You know what I mean? And I'd take a little extra from him for the Priscilla thing. It would call it even.
we'll call it even. Yeah, 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 yeah. Revert some of those rights or pay out some
Yeah.
cash to, you know,
Yeah,
Hound Dog
maybe
and
give her a trust fund so when she's old enough to know what to do with money, she can decide how she wants to live her life. Like a child actor. What's
right.
it? Yeah. Oh gosh, this is.
She ran off with this karate instructor. It's he paid in humiliation in some ways.
I mean, but so did Tom Brady. It doesn't matter what age they are; they're not loyal. Can't trust them. Just kidding.
Women? Wow, wow. I don't know, man. I'm I'm in my 12th year, and you know our story, split
You're
up
the
after
unicorn. You're the
we're a
unicorn.
rarity.
Mm.
I think we're the
Yeah.
exception to the rule.
To be fair, also, I mean, you guys, it's a heartwarming story, and that you work together, you're able to create together, like, you know what I mean? I
Yeah.
see you're like bouncing off each other with beams of light. It's crazy. You know what I mean?
It is kind of
I'm
crazy.
sure she's smarter than you. I'm certain of
Oh,
it. Like,
there's
the
so
difference is you listen. That's all
yeah.
you got to do. Is listen to them. No matter how old they are, you know what I mean? Like, inherently, they are going to be smarter than you, if about nothing else, about you. Maybe fucking annoyingly, irritatingly daft at other things that you think matter, but when they talk to you about you, they are right and you are wrong. And if you can get you right, then you can probably be a lot more right about a lot of other things, including how to treat her.
Oh yeah. It's
How that
all
would like all come full circle.
I think it's all balanced too. It's like there are things that she does that there's things that I know about that she doesn't because we took totally different paths. She went to Fordham University. I dropped out of high school and went to the School of Hard Knocks. It was like on the street by like 16. So I've spent 30 years learning different martial arts or fighting styles. I keep trying to show her how to hit a heavy bag, and she's like, "Why do I want to hit it though?" And so we have
That's a rude question to ask.
yeah, I think so. Like because it's been saying terrible things about you. I don't know. Uh, but we have differences that make up a whole, and but yeah, no, she directed me before we ever dated and saw me in a role that I wouldn't have picked for myself. And that's like the seeds of like, oh, this person sees me in a way that I don't even see myself. And then when you try it on, what she wants you to do, not like a fishnet bodysuit, but like, a role as a detective, I was like, oh, this actually feels right. I never imagined this for myself. And then we went on and
Yeah.
did this play and on and on and on.
Bring up Oscar De La Hoya, and this is the kind of dynamic that again the comments will go crazy, like, "Oh, you just gotta, you know, let women tell you about yourself." And there's a dozen examples, and let's take the Oscar. He took these photos. This woman, while he was in a
Compromised
vulnerable
state.
state,
Yeah.
decided to dress up this way and take these photos. Well, here's the thing: the photos probably not a good idea. However, she saw in him what he may had not yet seen in himself, which is he was comfortable in these fishnets. The point is, he got to see himself for the first time.
I don't
She,
disagree with that at all. Like I've actually never, the joke I just made aside, because it was just right there. Um, I've never given him shit about it. In fact, like to me, he's a guy that really needs to go to Burning Man because he will really be able to fly his freak flag. I'm sure he's flying it in Vegas now, but
he's playing it every Thursday on fucking
yeah.
Instagram
But like
now.
seeing him hit 50, like we're all around the same age. I could see the same feelings that I went through, which is like I've never been more myself and more comfortable with who I am. And I'm like leaning into that. And he's just like, hey man, I did that shit. It was me. I tried to cover it up. I'm now telling you about it. And these are the things that I went through, and this is how I'm comfortable. Like, if you examine anybody on this planet's sexual life, whether they're an incel or actively sexual, it would look weird to anybody that's not involved. We're all weird. We all do weird shit. We're all freaks. And I've never held that against him. Other things, even the drugs. I'm like, dude, he was made to fight by his father at a young age. He was, more famous than anybody in his position has ever really been. Young Mexican guy from East LA. He was a freaking rock star. And he's like, movie star, good looks. He's got lightning in his left hand. I mean, what are you going to do? But you screw like that many people and you have that much access, it's going to get boring. You're going to start going outside the box at a certain point.
Yeah,
You just don't do it with baby oil and forcing people to freak off. As long as you don't do that,
yeah,
you're
yeah.
fine. It messes up the condoms. It's just maybe that was the point.
Yeah, yeah. All right. I like that. Let's just leave it there.